We have 4 presentations this evening. You will get 15 minutes to speak, and then there's 15-minute question and answers immediately following that 15 minutes. You don't need to take all your 15 minutes, but if you need 15 minutes, that you have 15 minutes. Kurt will let you know when 5 minutes is left during your presentation, so you try not to run over. And if you have any questions when you come up, you can ask them at that time. What I'd like to do now is I'd like to start with the roll call, if I may.
Okay. Jim Biggs.
Here.
Mike Brickner.
Here.
Eric Wagner.
Here.
Ruth Vance. Here. And Rebecca Tomerlin.
Here.
5 present.
I just feel let the group know ahead of time, and participants, I'm going to be excusing myself, not to be rude, excusing myself at 5:40. So just want to kind of let everybody know.
Appreciate it. Thank you. Okay, we'll start with the first presenter, which is Hilltop Neighborhood House. Hi.
Hi. And the folder's on here?
Yes, that's
Yeah,
fine.
Each of you? Okay.
I'll get it out of the way early. I fell on the Hilltop Playground last October, and this is my second surgery, so yes, it hurt, and about another 10 weeks.
Sorry.
I hope that doesn't count as our 15 minutes, though.
No, okay. I'll let you know when it starts.
Okay.
You brought all of us one of those cool orange shirts, you probably got 20 minutes.
Yeah,
But you didn't do that.
we could have, but we didn't want to get in trouble.
You can start anytime you're ready.
My name is Jennifer Wright. I am the Executive Director of Hilltop Neighborhood House, and this is...
My name is Amy Osborne. I am the Vice President and Director of Hilltop.
We are here tonight to do our presentation for the ARPA funds. And we have our next slide, please. A little bit about Hilltop Neighborhood House. I think most of you already know who we are and what we do. We've been in business for 27 years. We started as a child care center. We have now morphed into a full IDOE partnered school, early childhood education preschool, and we have a food pantry, and we also are opening our new community garden on Saturday. And we are specifically tonight asking for $400,000, which is different than our original ask. We had asked for $500,000, but we were awarded $100,000 by the Valparaiso City Council, which we're pretty happy about. And the process for this ask, we had our application in January 7th, and we had made no changes to it since then. And it is a little long-winded, so tonight I'm going to go strictly from my presentation, which I have arranged in order of your rubric. So hopefully that will help you with the scoring, because I can really veer off topic. So, all right. So we're going to talk about first priority considerations based on the rubric. Hilltop Neighborhood House is eligible for ARPA funds based on the fact that we are in the Treasury's final ruling, what is known as a Governor Opportunity Zone, and I know you are familiar with what that is. We are the only Governor Opportunity Zone in all of Porter County. We have the highest amount of poverty in under a 2-square radius, and then anywhere else in Porter County, we have the highest amount of low-density housing and other issues to make us carry that title. Again, I talked about us reducing our award request down to $400,000. Hilltop will leverage any funds awarded by this committee with 100% matching funds immediately once award is announced, if it's announced. Hilltop programs currently serve 3,742 individuals annually throughout Porter County. Our child care program serves families from all over Porter County, and I believe that's also listed in our 990, which you previously received. ARPA funds will be used to impact the safety procedures that are now mandated by the state for quality childhood education child care facilities. Any funds awarded by this committee, if any, will be obligated by December 31st, 2024, Any funds awarded by this committee will be spent by December 31st, 2026. Hilltop has received to date $147,653.55 from federal and state aid to assist with the current low census and loss of child care fees because of that low census. However, this did not cover anywhere near our total losses. Hilltop is a non-discrimination employer, and our policies are such that any vendors that we would hire or people that we would employ would also fall under the non-discrimination policy. So we would also adhere to the best labor practices required by the council. Hilltop has an excellent audit status. All of our tax filings have been completed in a timely fashion since our inception since 1995. You asked for the 2020s. Our 2021s will probably be done in about another 2 weeks. Hilltop is willing to accept a lesser amount if so offered by this committee. Sorry. Thank you. Economic impact. Hilltop has been impacted by COVID-19 pandemic, and I know some of this isn't required as a governor opportunity zone. However, we have been greatly impacted, so we wanted to highlight that here tonight. We did have state mandated closures where we were mandated to be closed. Other than that, we stayed open the entire time, and the food pantry did not close at all, not once. We did lose revenue from fees and from fundraising. State-mandated health and safety protocols were required, and we had to do large amount of upgrades to our building so that we may safely stay open during the pandemic, after the pandemic, and near the future. All these protocols are now permanent. We also had to hire additional staff. We lost quite a few volunteers. We even had a few volunteers pass away because of COVID-19. We lost a lot of our community partners and activities. And we had an increased cost of everything from building maintenance to food to childcare supplies. Everything went up during the pandemic, and it stays up today, as you all know. So, all right. Hilltop qualifies disproportionately as an impacted nonprofit operating in this qualified census tract. Due to the pandemic, there has been an increased demand for our services, as I mentioned in my original very long, I heard someone say she turned in a 5-page narrative. I'm sorry about that. So, but we have had an increased demand for our services and changing operation needs due to COVID safety, as well as a decline in revenue sources related to fundraising, donations, special events, and client fees. Based on the population we serve, we offset nearly 40% of our Hilltop costs with volunteer services and direct donations of program supplies such as food or classroom supplies. If you tag a volunteer hour worth of service, the national average is about $27 an hour. We do an additional $275,000 a year in support services just based on volunteer hours. All of that came to a halt when the pandemic started. The volunteers were not permitted in our building. Most of our volunteers are senior citizens. It was not safe for them to return. Many of them have not returned because it's still not safe. So that has been a huge hit for us. Let's see, Hilltop has a formal collaborations right now with 12 different colleges and universities who provide federal work study students. We do not pay them. The federal government pays them through their college, so we do not receive any of those funds. Service learning workers and other program enhancements who are also unable to come for the last 24 months. They have not been permitted in our building. Things like speech therapy, occupational therapy, meeting with caseworkers, parental supervised visits, those things all stopped because of the pandemic. On page 4, actual measurable revenue loss has been approximately $305,000 annual, actual to dollars lost, and that was because of a reduction in our hours of operation. The state mandated that we closed in the evenings to clean for a certain amount of time with no children in the building. They also mandated that parents were not permitted in our building, so Amy and I were working 12 and 14-hour days and walking each child in and out of the building because we barely had enough teachers to staff the classrooms. Our teachers also cannot leave the classrooms. It's not like a regular school. You can't leave, 23-year-olds in a classroom and run to the bathroom. So if they have to go to the bathroom, we have to find another staff to go get them. And so our staff were working some really long hours just so we could stay open for essential workers. Our special events and public fundraising activities have been canceled for the last 2.5 years. However, we did just have our soups. We didn't have it for 2 years. It was very successful, and we're happy to have it back. Our attendance was much lower, but our fundraising was outstanding. So we were very happy to have soups back. Where am I at here?
The 50% census for families.
Where am I at? Okay, nope. We dropped down to, literally, at the governor's mandate to close, we dropped down to 50% census in our enrollment because parents were feeling very scared to send their children to Hilltop. And most of our families, the state average is 36% were able to work from home. This county's average was 26% were able to work from home. But if any of you have a toddler and you're trying to work from home, you're not working from home. So we didn't have a lot of parents who even had jobs where they had the opportunity to work from home. So a lot of parents stopped working. Hilltop remains right now at 85%. Simply because of the capacity restraints based on the new COVID protocols. We have a waiting list 17 months long right now for our services. We don't have the space, and we have to do all these building enhancements to make sure that we have the space so we can open back up at our regular capacity and then add an additional 30 spots for our waiting list families, specifically those children under the age of 2. You want to add anything to that?
No, I think as far as the space goes that we're talking about, we do not have any rooms for specialized therapies for children right now. We didn't have rooms for our staff to do any of their planning time for lesson plans and curriculum. We didn't have anywhere for them to simply eat lunch. They were eating lunch in their cars because of social distancing. So space for children and for staff is definitely a concern.
And just to let you know, our clients cannot get vaccinated. They're 0 to 5. There's no vaccination available for them yet. They cannot mask up. 2 and under shouldn't mask up anyway, and that's half of our population. 2 and up aren't going to wear a mask 10 hours a day. They have to eat, they have to nap. And if you try to put a mask on your child just to go to the grocery store, you know they're not going to wear it for 10 hours a day. So our population is definitely high risk. And we were doing great with COVID cases until recently when the state went back to everybody go maskless, and we've just been hit really hard with kids getting it from home and then coming in. So we've had a lot of kids get it just recently within the last 5 months.
Correct.
So we had to cost, again, actual measurable costs increase approximately $370,000 for things that we had to do because of COVID. The cost of PPE, we were also not first in line to get PPE, even though we had essential workers. Physical changes to the building that we have completed and will now be permanent. Additional hand washing stations, we added more sinks, we added, anywhere you could put plexiglass, we put plexiglass. Professionally installed toilets, and our toilets are not regular toilets, they're tiny toilets, they're special order, tiny toilets, tiny pipes.
Lots of money.
Yes. Changing areas where you change the children, we do about 300 to 400 diapers a day at Hilltop. Come in about 2 o'clock and you can tell. Hand sanitizing stations, 16 of those. Nightly air purification equipment had to be purchased. We also had to close down an hour for the air purification to be done every night. This is in addition to changing our air filtration system. Hiring staff to replace volunteer positions such as the front desk. We couldn't get any front desk workers to volunteer, so we had to hire a full-time person. Food prep volunteers, both of our food prep volunteers passed away from COVID right at the beginning, but they also prep all the food and bring it to the classrooms. Teachers' assistants, all those positions had to be filled with paid assistants, paid staff. The cost of adding safety protocols, again, these were for things like no parents being allowed in the building. Even now, they're only allowed one at a time, and they have to stay standing outside of the classroom, and they're only allowed in for a few minutes. Extra floater for staff breaks, mandating closing hours for additional cleaning. And our after-school program has been shut down for 2 years. So we've just been feeding those kids. They're coming over at 5 o'clock and getting the meals that we're buying prepared from Valpo Community Schools. And again, hiring extra teachers for smaller class sizes, which was part of the protocol. We had a difficulty in weathering the financial hardship due to the constant changing COVID protocols from the CDC and FSSA. Constantly changing, the whole building had to close, one classroom had to close, one teacher had to close. It is still changing now.
2 weeks, 10 days,
far
5
as
days. Yes.
who can come and who can't come. When it first started, the whole classrooms had to close, and then it was different. But that's been very difficult. Right now, we're operating on limited hours. And for example, if one more staff gets sick, tomorrow we'll have to lower our hours in our infant room. That's how fragile our program is right now, and we have never been like that before. So most childcare, how many?
4.5.
Most childcare centers operate on a razor-thin margin anyway. We offset our costs so that we can provide a higher quality program with trained teachers by fundraising. That's why Hilltop is as successful as they are, and we also target working parents. Parents must be working or going to school to drop their children off at Hilltop. You can't drop your kids off just because you want to put them in a good program, although we do appreciate the compliment. Our goal is to make sure all parents stay working. Loss of clients because are COVID-related. losses continue. Loss of clients because of COVID, loss of volunteers, loss of federal work-study students, expenses for PPP, staff attrition. People did not want to work in a COVID. The first year you work at a child care center, we give them extra sick days because it's like working in a petri dish. You're around every bodily fluid known to man. So you throw COVID in there, and people just didn't want to come out and work at the child care centers. 23% of child care centers closed permanently, 53% closed during the pandemic, 73% of that 53% that stayed open were home centers, not quality centers like we run at Hilltop. We have paid out to date $161,000 in sick time just for COVID. State mandated PPE facility changes, $250,000 annually and counting. Special events were not permitted at all. State canceling gatherings even over 25, so we couldn't even have staff meetings. We were having those at night on Zoom, which was adding to overtime. Class sizes needed to be made smaller, and we bought furniture for that, other educational milieu to promote safety and social distancing. I'm going to whip through this for my 4 minutes. In order to keep our essential workers at their own jobs, they need to have affordable, reliable, safe childcare. This building, again, being located in a Governor Opportunity Zone, already suffers from an external set of issues related to that. We have seen a huge increase in drug use, mental health issues, overdoses, homelessness activities, food insecurity. Our neighborhood has one of the highest volumes of calls in Valpo for external safety issues, which was what we'll call, we're on yellow lockdown probably every other week. We've had guns out in front of Hilltop, we've had drugs, we've had mental breakdowns, and our original plan for this building was to worry about the safety on the outside. Since COVID, now we have to worry about the safety on the inside, almost as much as the safety on the outside. So, but again, our goal is to keep all parents working. Last page. In your packet, if you pull out, are the proposed floor plans and costs for our building upgrades. This is basically essentially what we're asking for the $400,000 for, that the county could help restore and absorb some of the COVID-related expenses that continue to now and into perpetuity with this new building. 100% of the funds awarded by this committee will be used for COVID-related building expenses and upgrades that include, but are not limited to, floors that are able to be sanitized. Right now, our floors are carpeted. You cannot sanitize those. We have them washed every couple of months, but they need to be washed every night. Walls able to be sanitized. That's a different kind of paint. New HVAC air purification system for the entire building. Our building is almost 100 years old, and it's got a heck of a set of air pipes up above us. A larger lobby size. Right now, we're only allowed one guest at a time in the lobby, so we'll be knocking out some walls. A new HVAC air purification system. Larger classroom sizes, again, knocking out some walls so we can have smaller group sizes in the same classroom setting. Increased restrooms and sanitation facilities. And then permanent thermal scanners that we now use, those would be in every classroom instead of just at the front. Spaces for ill children. We cannot separate a child when they become ill. We have nowhere to put them, except in the office with the staff. And then spaces for child therapy services and parent meetings. And we definitely fall under the ARPA rule. We know you only have so much money. We're just happy to be considered. You have a lot of really good applications, and we're like nobody else. We're not any different from anybody else. COVID has hit us hard, but it's hit a lot of people hard. So we appreciate even the opportunity to talk about it.
Yes, thank you.
That concludes your presentation?
Yes.
Did a very good job. Covered a lot of areas. You've answered much of what I was going to ask. Or maybe I missed this one. Matching funds, do you have funds appropriated to this project already?
Yes, we had actually started the capital campaign probably the same month as COVID started. So we had some money put aside, and we had some gifts. If you look at our 990, we had some nice gifts coming in. Those were for the capital project. We put those aside. Those are in a separate account. So any monies awarded by this committee would be immediately matched. And then you have different rules because you're a government entity. We don't usually get a lot of government money because we're a private agency for 3 bids, things like that. So we'd probably have to Larson Danielson did this because we'd only required 1. I think now you require like 3, so we'd have to put it back out for bid.
I don't think so.
Okay, so just be prepared for that.
Yeah, I don't think so. No.
And then we've met with them.
There will be procurement procedures that will have to be followed.
Even though we're only financing a portion of it, we're not financing the entire project.
Right, no, I believe that there will be procurement procedures that will have to be followed.
Okay. Any of those would be matched, would completely okay. We have not signed anything with Larson Danielson. We have signed with Shive Hattery, not to do the whole thing, but we've already paid him a lot of
But
money. I'd
yeah.
rather not switch to another one, but if
Yeah,
asked, we could.
I'm aware that we have
Okay.
we have, different regulations that we have to follow, but I don't know if they're going to, that would also include a rebidding that project.
Yeah.
But we'll see. We'll see.
Cross that bridge if we come to it. And wash our hands first
Right.
and after.
Just when you need an attorney, you don't have one. Any other questions from the board? Nothing? You have any questions of us?
Nope.
I don't think so.
Again, we just appreciate being able to speak about the challenges that we're facing, because it's not just Hilltop, it's every childcare center.
Yeah.
You know, the Y's coming up here tonight too. Childcare is a tough business to be in right now, and I think down the road, people are gonna see just how tough when there isn't enough. You gotta have safe places for your kids to go, even if it isn't a pandemic.
Well, like I said, you've done a very good job of presenting, and you presented toward what this committee was put together for initially, was these are pandemic funds. How did the pandemic affect you or harm you? And you've done a very good job of doing that. We haven't always heard that up here since we started this, so.
Thank you. Thank you.
That was refreshing.
Thanks, okay. Thanks.
One quick question.
Sure, thank you.
In your presentation, you confirmed that you would be able to obligate the funds by December 31st, 2024.
Correct.
The steering committee moved that up to July 1st, 2024.
That could be done as well, yes.
I figured.
Yes. And I apologize, I was out, that was via email.
Yeah. Well, that was.
Hold on, I got a question. The state said, or the U.S. Treasury's office said we initially had to have them obligated by,
December 31st, 2024.
and who turned it up to July 1st?
The steering committee, with respect to our subrecipients and our beneficiaries.
Well, I don't know if the
because-
steering committee, Vicki, has that authority to do that. That should have been a conversation had by the Board of Commissioners and the County Council.
Well, this is a county rule, if you will. It's not the federal rule, because the federal rule is December 31st, 2024. But this is to safeguard the county for the beneficiaries and the subrecipients, and right now, well, we'll get to that.
To answer your question, yes, we would do it by July
Exactly.
or by December.
But the whole point of that was to ensure that if any of these subawards that are given out to these outside groups, if they can't obligate it, the county might run out of time and not be able to obligate it for another purpose.
Yeah, I just don't like changing the rules in midstream, because I think that may handcuff some of these applications to have it obligated that quickly. So, but we'll see. We'll see. Thank you very much.
Thank you for your time.
Kids Funds Corporation. Hi. Got you a helper there, huh?
I do, and in fact, he's been a volunteer for Kid Funds, and I pull everybody in around me to help in my projects. So he's got a handout for you. It's just our mission statement, a little bit about us.
Thank you, buddy.
It's something I think we gave to people who were donating money. Just to tell you a little bit more about us. And I know I mentioned it in my application. I wrote a little bit about our background, but I guess I wanted to summarize that a little bit so you'd know who I am, what Kid Funds is, what makes us unique, what we do, because we're unique. We're the only ones in the county providing the service that we provide. So and plus I want to clarify the relationships between, I'm involved in a lot of different things revolving around children. So about 16 years ago, I opened Kid Works in Chesterton, and it's a special needs pediatric therapy clinic. So we provide occupational, physical, speech therapy, and then we go out and do the early intervention program to kids 0 to 3 in their homes. We've become, in 16 years, one of the main providers, one of the only 2 providers in Porter County. And we service all of Lake, Porter, and LaPorte counties for the early intervention. And then kids, we're a medical facility, so we're not like a child care provider or other services like that, even like OE. OE used to provide some of the early intervention services, but they were never a medical provider. They shut that program down, and all their therapists from OE work for me because they kind of knew me. So we opened because I had special needs kids at the time, and I wasn't satisfied with the quality of services here. And I knew it would make a big change in their lives, what I was able to do with them, how I was able to work with them. And I was about to move back to Chicago to get those services, and one of my good friends was an occupational therapist, and she said, hey, and she had kids with autism as well. And she said, I know therapists, I know the kind of place they'd like to work. There's no place like that right now. You know business, which was managing restaurants. She said, let's give this a go. And I thought it'd be kind of a small thing. And today we're seeing, we're doing over 2,000 treats a month. So, and we've become the premier agency. We're well known by all the major hospitals in Chicago and Indianapolis. Besides being a therapy provider, I always had it in my vision to be a resource for the community and to be an advocate for special needs kids. And I've quietly been doing that for, as they said, 16 years. And you may not have heard of KidWorks unless you have a kid that is on the autism spectrum, which is about 80% of the kids we work with. We also work with kids with chromosomal abnormalities. Those are kids that are born with like a birth defect where their DNA is incorrect or something like that. We get kids right out of the NICU, which is the intensive care unit for babies, with tubes in their stomach and things like that, because we're medical providers. So very early on, we started hitting kids that their insurance could not cover services. They desperately needed them. I had my therapist coming to me saying, I can make this kid talk, I can make this kid walk, I know it. So I'd say, oh, just bring them in, we'll figure it out. And I kept doing that till I reached a point where my business was threatened because we were doing so much pro bono services. So I thought, if the community understood what the level of need is here, they'll help. I believe in them. I know, we'll get the Rotary Club or moms groups or church groups, and they'll pitch in and help. And sure enough, they did. And one of the big things we did every year, which got a little famous, was our dinner dance. And we had a huge auction. A lot of it were small things, grandmas that made quilts, the bike shop that, gave a tune-up, and, $50 at a time, and then a few larger donations from like Sentier and NIPSCO. We would raise about $12,000 a year, and that would be enough for me to help every child that needed it. And we made sure they really could benefit from therapy and that they actually really needed it. So we would have a therapist review their need and say, yes, I think this kid can make progress. We have outstanding insurance billers, so we would appeal to their insurance. We would search the state funding sources, like children with special health care needs or or Medicaid, and make sure that they didn't qualify for other kinds of services. And then if they didn't, we would help them out. So that's kind of who Kid Funds is, and it's a nonprofit, it's completely volunteer. So if I make $50 on Grandma's quilt, $50 is going in a scholarship for a kid. There's no money taken off the top. Any kinds of office supplies or volunteer work, there's no cost at all. So that makes us unusual. We're a local charity where 100% money goes to kids that really need this. So that's the first thing I wanted to talk about. Then I wanted to talk about how we qualify according to the final rule, which I've spent quite a bit of time on, and I've watched all your proceedings via YouTube, and even before this committee, I was watching and researching. So besides being a nonprofit that qualifies, I believe because we're helping with co-pays, we also are providing assistance to families in need. So there's another category in the final rule about that. And it's medical assistance, which is also specified in a different place. So there's multiple places in the Department of Treasury's rule, ARPA rules, that show Kid Fund qualifies for this program. Now, the next category I have to discuss is, okay, what's our COVID-related loss? How is this COVID-related? Well, in two ways. One, we had an incredible loss because we really depended on a handful, and mainly one, big public fundraisers, which we could not hold for 2 years. And we also got private donations, which were down. So we got only a couple $1,000s over 2 years, where we should have raised $12,000 a year, which would have equaled $24,000, which is why I'm asking for that. Now, additionally, we've had a huge increase in need. And the families that we're really seeing hit are the middle income families, because if they're lower income, we can get them enrolled in Medicaid programs and their services can get covered under that. We are one of the few providers in Northwest Indiana that made sure we accepted Medicaid, because I wanted to help any family that needed help in our community. A lot of agencies like mine in Chicago, for instance, are cash only, and only the elite get services for their kids. Well, that's not what I wanted. So we help families get Medicaid services. Some of the wealthier families could afford to pay, but it's the middle class. Insurance policies, deductibles, as you may know, have skyrocketed. Now we're seeing $5,000 to $8,000 deductibles. We're seeing huge co-pays. We're seeing less services being approved and less services for OT or PT written into insurance policies. So it used to be 52 treats a year, now it's 20 maybe. So if it's a kid that desperately needs these services, and sometimes they're life-sustaining services, then they need help from their community, or they have, in the instance of the example I gave you in my application of the child that had desperately needed a nutritionist that was just released from the NICU unit. We got a feeding specialist for them. That was covered, but a nutritionist was not. And a nutritionist was needed to weigh the food, weigh the baby, figure out what they needed to be fed. So that was a life or death issue. And we were the only ones. We called around to see if there was any place else. Porter County Community Foundation just started a big program for 0 to 5 kids, and they had nothing to help us with, which was quite disappointing. Okay, so I said we're going to help this kid, So our loss is not just in our lack of funds, but an increase in need. Our response, 24,000, we estimate 1,300 to be the amount needed for services for one child for 6 months. So if I divide that 24,000 by 1,300, that would be 18 scholarships for kids, which would be really spectacular. And that would help us with the loss in income from our events. Now, in terms of the additional need, I'm going to take care of that. So we've already received some donations. I'm going to solicit more. I will work very hard. I will cover that. I will make sure these kids are taken care of because I don't sleep at night. It's not like giving to cancer, which is a great thing. These are individual kids and families I get to know. Another one we just funded was a family whose child was being seen by teletherapy. Their insurance would no longer cover it, and they couldn't come in because a sibling had cancer, and they couldn't be exposed. So that's what we do, and we are the only one kind of taking care of these special needs kids. I know it's not the biggest number of people covered. I know you talked about that as one of your criteria. But as I said, these are special kids. And I'll give you an example of my other child that was helped. He had autism. He flapped and screamed for 7 hours when he was a baby. Now, because of intensive therapy, he's at a private school, and he's studying to be a researcher and be a neurobiologist that researches how DNA can be manipulated to work with cures for kids with chromosomal damage or diseases like cancer. So that's, they can't just outgrow this. For 7 years, there's this time where their neural synapses can make lots of connections. So it's essential that we not delay another one last thing that happened is a lot of these kids didn't get their therapeutic services in school. So if they were home, they weren't just missing education, and some of them were medically fragile, so they really couldn't go to school. They were missing their OT and PT and speech that they got at school. So that's another way the need has been even greater. So thank you.
Thank you. A question, real quick. Do you hold any medical degrees?
I don't. As I said, I got into it as an administrator. I took some classes on insurance billing. I became a certified medical coder and biller. And in the 18 years, I've attended many continuing education classes about how the brain functions, occupational therapy, physical therapy, speech therapy. My kids got it for many years. I sit and talk to the parents as much as I can. I'm rarely in my office when I am working. So I've learned a lot about it. I've researched
I bet you have.
it quite a bit.
Well, thank you for all the work that you do. You fill a real need. I just have a couple questions.
Sure.
Have you gotten any other federal funding?
No, not for this because we don't have a payroll, so we didn't get any of the payroll funds. KidWorks did, but Kid Funds, which is what I'm applying for here in a separate thing, did not get any funds, has not. We've always just been fine with donations. So I've never had the need to apply for grants, but that is something I'm looking into and have someone helping me with, and maybe it's time for another online class. But yeah, so no, we've received no other funds.
Okay. And then I just have a note, Vicki, I don't know, that we needed proof of your 501c3 status. Do you have that now?
Yes.
I'm just curious.
Sure.
So for the 2 years you weren't able to have your fundraiser and you didn't have money coming in, how did you operate?
Well, I mean, we went, this is just for Kid funds, so we did have money coming in at KidWorks. Luckily, I'd been always interested in doing teletherapy because there's been a shortage of early prevention program kids in rural areas. And I thought, wouldn't it be great if we could do teletherapy, because at least we could do that to help these kids out in the middle of nowhere. So I'd taken several seminars on it. We did a lot of research on it. So when we had to be closed down for a while, we virtually in one weekend converted to teletherapy. It was a little crazy, but we did it, and we continued to offer it. So, and then I got the payroll protection loan, which helped quite a bit. Although we had to buy lots of equipment and, computers and pay for different types of online programs to change over to the teletherapy. So I couldn't help the kids that couldn't afford it for a while, and it's broken my heart because it's been the first time that I had to say to families that didn't have cash or insurance coverage that, there was no money for kid funds. I paid for a few kids out of my own pocket because I just couldn't stand it.
So you're making an application under the name of Kid
Kids
Funds.
Funds, which is the scholarship fund.
You keep bringing up Kid Works. What is that?
Right, so KidWorks is my clinic, where the therapists work. And we run into kids that can't afford therapy. And although I do a lot of pro bono, I can't do all pro bono. So I established Kid Funds as an official nonprofit with the IRS to so I could raise money from the community to help these kids out that need it. Now, KidWorks in no way really benefits from Kid Funds because we have huge waiting list. So it would be very simple for us to say, if you can't afford it, we're going to move on to the next kiddo. So it's not like this is helping KidWorks financially, it's just helping the families. So if, another example, a dad dies in a car accident and the insurance was in his name, we can continue services for that child seamlessly by funding them with a scholarship.
So you said in your clinic,
Yes.
are you bringing in licensed therapists?
Oh, our therapists all have PhDs, absolutely. We have like 5 physical, we have the highest educated therapist in Northwest Indiana. We're also a clinical rotation site.
Who's paying them?
They're paid by KidWorks Insurance. See,
okay.
so in the money we make as a company. And so Kid Funds, so we'll hit a kid that a problem's happened for, or they can't get services. And instead of sweeping them aside and moving on to the next kid, we try to fund them multiple different ways. And as a last resort, or, as a last hope, we're able to offer them scholarship. So Kid Funds is a scholarship.
Okay, so you're receiving your funds, if I'm understanding you, is through donations.
Yes.
And it sounds like you
Fundraisers.
periodically bill insurance companies.
KidWorks bills insurance companies. Kid Funds gets money from donations and fundraisers.
Okay.
The IRS has required us to have a wall between the two, which we met their requirements. And we've been audited, and we actually got money back. I had the best IRS audits ever.
Well, good.
So, yeah, we also get audited by the state of Indiana, all the insurance companies, so we get constant audits that we always pass with flying colors. We've never had a problem.
Okay. Is this one of your clients?
He was. This is my son, Declan Mangan. And, yeah, he was at KidWorks quite a bit. And now he's doing great. He was just on the dean's list in college. He's awesome. And he's been a volunteer and helped me.
I just noticed how he gave
At
you
the
your water,
fundraisers.
took the lid off for you.
Yeah, he's my buddy. Yeah. He takes care of me now because I have some health issues. So the clock has turned, and it's quite wonderful.
Well, if the board doesn't have any more questions, thank you very much,
Okay.
and a nice presentation.
Thank you. Thank you.
Do you have any questions of us?
No, I don't think I do. I just was hoping that you would consider that we don't have the biggest, in terms of number of people, impact, but the impact we do have on a small group is enormous.
I think we get that.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, buddy.
I apologize, I'm going to have to leave. I have a migraine kicking in,
Okay.
so I can watch it later.
Okay.
Sorry about that. Those were my questions.
And then there were three. Nana Claire's Kitchen.
You're welcome. Do I leave extras for them?
Yeah, give it to him. You know, I didn't have lunch, I'm starving, so I,
Do you have a kitchen? I'll whip something up for you.
I'm just saying, look, you're gonna start talking about food, I'm gonna get,
I'll keep food to a minimum, I promise.
I don't miss much, so. Push that back. There you go. All right, temperamental.
Okay. Good evening. My name is Gina Zenowitz. I am the chef, owner, instructor at Nana Claire's Kitchen. Nana Claire's Kitchen has been in operation going on 11 years this September.
Gonna bug the devil out of us. You can just unplug that and put the other one in front of her. There you go. No woman can hurt to fix it.
I owe you one.
Nana Claire's Kitchen has been in September, going on 11 years. Sorry about that. I am a trained chef, have over 25 years in the culinary world. I'm a certified Serve Safe instructor in food, alcohol, and allergens. I teach those classes all over Northwest Indiana and in White County near Monticello. I am also a certified workplace specialist, which means that I can go into high schools or the education system and teach basic food safety, hospitality, which I've done. Lately, with COVID, I have been doing group trainings in restaurants. Bar servers, bartenders, they bring me in and train the whole staff at once, along with kitchen build-out. We were the first commercial kitchen in Northwest Indiana that was designed for rental purposes, and basically we're much more than that. We are the only commercial kitchen in existence that has the business plan that we do. And why we do that is because I didn't want to be a commercial kitchen or a commissary with a lockbox on the door and never speak to these people and just kind of, here's the key, here's the kitchen, good luck. So what we do is take them from a business plan point of view, walk them through really what food is. Food is a different animal, I believe. Margins are different, costs are higher. Equipment alone in the kitchen, it's just astronomical. So unfortunately, that's why we see a lot of restaurants, cafes, coffee shops open up with the best intentions and the most talented of chefs, but they fail within 6, 8 months to a year because the cost is just so high of overhead. So what we do is take that out of the equation, and we let these people that are home-based vendors or caterers or whatever it may be, and we work backwards. We let them work in our kitchen under licensing. They have their insurance, but it's us that takes the high cost. We have the equipment. We pay NIPSCO. We pay rent. All they do is pay for the kitchen when they need it. That enables them to build a client base first, then build their brick and mortar. So hopefully, if they build it, they will come, and they'll already know who they are. So we encourage most of our renters. We have 17 at the moment. Within the 10 years, we've had as high as 23 renters in our kitchen at one time, running their food businesses. But in addition to that, we teach all different kinds of programs in our kitchen. I'm really big on teaching and working with kids. So we work with kids. I developed the only culinary education program that has a comprehensive curriculum. We start with 4-year-olds and go all the way up to 17. When they're 17 or when they turn 18, they have the choice of going into our adult classes, or they enter into my young entrepreneur program. So Nana Claire's is just all about helping from the bottom up, but to build a business for themselves to work. So because we're classified in 2 different areas, we're an education center and we're also a food service. So we got hit twice as hard, I'm going to say, so to speak, because we were closed down. If one side was open, the other side was closed. If one side was closed, the other side was open. So when schools in Valpo and Porter County, when they had to close, we had to close. We had to shut everything down. We couldn't work with kids. And then the food side, restaurants were closed, so our renters couldn't come in and cook. And we lost, they lost as well as we did, but all of our programming had to stop. So basically, we kept everything going, we had to, so that these people, as soon as it opened, had a place to come back to. So the other programs and stuff that we do, the Serve Safe classes, the kids cooking camps, we teach all kinds of baking classes, on my own programs. All of that came to a complete stop. We just recently were able to go back to our classes. Our fall session of our cooking classes just ended, and those were the first ones that we had in 2 years. They were full, but those were the first ones we had in 2 years. If we are granted the money that I'm asking, between 2019 to 2020, we lost over $30,000. From 20 to 21, it was substantial, and then last year we actually had a negative of over 8,000. I'm only asking for 10 to just cover that. We had a couple hiccups, let's say, with our air conditioning, heating. One of the big ovens in the kitchen went out, that's still out. So there's things that I need to get back to 100% so that people can come in and run their businesses. So that's what it would be.
Thank you.
You're very welcome.
You're not a nonprofit, you're an actual business.
Correct.
Okay.
I know you mentioned dollars lost, but could you kind of go over a little bit, again, the amount of revenue you lost due to COVID?
Due to COVID, when we were shut down completely from 19 to 20, there was over a $30,000 loss.
Is that just from, like, rent?
That's renters' rent income. That's all of our cooking classes, birthday parties, scouting groups. That's anything, basically, that I would have taught along with the renters renting the kitchen. The only revenue that Nana Claire's makes is rental. So I created all of the other programs to ensure that we could survive so that the people could come in and rent. We couldn't survive on just their rent.
So during the lockdowns, you were locked down?
We were, yes.
Yeah.
But you make money on the classes you teach, right?
We
People
couldn't.
don't have to pay, no, I just mean usually.
Oh, yes,
Because when you said the only money you make is from renters, you also make money. when
right.
you're
That's
open.
exactly,
From
that's
teaching
why I
classes, they
created
pay a
this, right.
tuition. Okay. yeah.
Yes.
Any other questions?
Will your business be sustainable if you get this grant from us?
I believe so. I believe the momentum, the parents, I believe so, yes. Once I'm able to open back up and offer all of the programs that we had before, we always have a waiting list for our cooking classes, our camps, our baking classes are full every month. So I'm confident that if I can get back open to full potential, that we'll be able to sustain.
You're open, are you open to full potential now?
Not full potential now, but our renters are back in. We're back with our baking classes, our once a month. We're hoping to start up with our summer session of the cooking camps. So slowly but surely, we can keep introducing things back.
And have you gotten any other monies based on COVID?
We got the PPP loan. We did get that. I'm the only one on the payroll, so I know I'm not supposed to say this, but that didn't even go really to pay me. I wasn't taking a salary because there were things that came up that needed more, so I didn't even take a salary during that time.
But you did get a PPP loan.
We did.
Well, that won't necessarily, most of our applicants, I think, have received some kind of funding.
Our
doesn't-
PPP was $3,000.
Yeah, I didn't say that to say it would disqualify you.
Right.
Any other questions? Well, thank you very much,
Thank you.
and that's pretty cool that you do that.
Thank you. I appreciate the opportunity.
Well, you're welcome.
Valparaiso YMCA.
Thank you.
Sure.
I think.
Start anytime you're ready.
Could you advance one more slide for me? He's not listening to me. Could you advance one more slide for me? Perfect, thank you. Good evening. My name is Sharon Johnson, and I am the new CEO for the Valparaiso Family YMCA. This is Tracy McElry. She is the Senior Director of Advancement for the YMCA. I'd like to take this opportunity to thank you for the opportunity to give your giving to nonprofits to request assistance from the recovery funds. And thank you all for your volunteering of time and guiding the recommendation for the use of these funds. The Valparaiso Family YMCA is requesting $950,000 to meet the changing needs of our community as a result of the pandemic. For more than 75 years, the Valparaiso Family YMCA has been the center of our community. Today, we serve 15,000 members, more than 7,000 non-members, and we average more than 1,500 daily visits to our facility. In addition, we partner with more than 40 local service and nonprofit organizations. We provide a place for their clients to heal and partnership for efficient delivery of resources. The Y offers memberships to more than 100 clients of organizations serving individuals with developmental disabilities, victims of domestic abuse, adults in recovery from substance abuse, and other at-risk groups. Next slide, please. We are more committed than ever to continue our work of strengthening community by ensuring children have a safe place to learn, grow, and thrive, connecting seniors to support and friendship, and helping families stay healthy and strong. Just as importantly, we activate a movement of kindness and service. The Y, as most everyone, has felt the effects of this pandemic, but despite our own struggles with COVID, we stepped forward to help the community cope with the challenges that COVID brought. During shutdown, senior-level staff continued to work and keep operations running. The Y is a major part of the economy of Porter County with 265 employees. And I'm proud to share that we continued to compensate all staff, helping families to sustain while the Y was closed. In support of our members, the Y honored requests to put monthly membership fees on hold. Meanwhile, we streamlined our financial assistance process to better serve the working family, as well as reach out to more than 3,000 seniors and at-risk members to ensure they were supported. The Y held blood drives in partnership with the American Red Cross and offered child care to essential workers for as long as we were able to remain open. We also expanded our virtual presence, reaching the community with online resources for fitness and learning, and perhaps most importantly, a sense of association. Committed to helping our community, the Y was one of the first local organizations to reopen. The Y's commitment to youth development was and continues to be a priority. We held summer camp for more than 200 children, offering children a safe, structured environment and parents the opportunity to return to work. To open our doors for preschool and before and after school programming, we worked closely with local health officials. We meticulously followed state and county COVID guidelines for PPE, social distancing, and sanitation. Ozone generators were also purchased and installed to run daily in classrooms to ensure surface and air sanitation. To further support families faced with the challenges of school closures due to COVID, the Y offered e-learning Wednesdays in partnership with the Valparaiso Community Schools. We provided children with hot lunch, virtual learning support, physical activity, and connection. We have observed children arriving at the Y with smaller lunches and less healthy options, so we are working to supplement lunches with nutrient-dense, healthy snacks and ease the burden on families. And we acquired sensory play therapy, and other social and emotional educational tools to address anxiety and depression in children caused by the pandemic. COVID social distancing guidelines challenge space constraints, and the Y continues to manage a wait list for families desiring child care services. As with other organizations, staffing shortages were a key obstacle. To minimize the risk of COVID exposure, we were not able to utilize volunteers, including program volunteers from Valparaiso University. And we found it necessary to increase wages across our child care department and for frontline staff to strengthen retention, which further stressed our finances. An interesting byproduct of the COVID pandemic has been an increase in teen activity at the YMCA. In fact, our youth membership is currently our fastest growing membership category. To support healthy teen activity, the Y launched Teens Together, a new middle school group that plans service projects and social events. This group is mentored by the Y's Adult Service Committee called Togetherhood. Additionally, we have expanded our menu in youth sports and wellness, helping youth to achieve their goals, develop character, and adopt healthy habits. Building this sense of community provides support and important life skills for teens. We know that being well, especially in difficult times, is of the utmost importance. We are working proactively to address negative health ramifications of the COVID pandemic, including lack of preventative care and lack of physical activity. The Y's Healthy Living Services, in partnership with St. Mary Medical Center, give our community a place to belong and the tools to be proactive about health. The Y's signature chronic disease prevention programs, Live Strong at the Y and blood pressure self-monitoring, were forced to temporarily suspend. We are the only Live Strong at the Y provider within a 50-mile radius. This crucial service provides a personalized program of fitness and strength free of charge for cancer survivors and their caregivers. As senior adults were able to be vaccinated, the Y reconnected with them to make it easier for them to regain their health. More than 3,000 senior adult members ages 65 and older have available at our Y an all-inclusive menu of exercise classes, educational seminars, social trips, and other senior activities. These programs enhance quality of life and remove the isolation that for many was an overbearing symptom of COVID. And the Y partners with the Food Bank of Northwest Indiana to bring the mobile food markets to the Y for families suffering from food insecurity. We serve on average 100 families per month. In addition, we have observed an increase of the utilization of the Y as a warming and cooling shelter. Next slide, please. Although we worked hard to tighten expenses, we incurred additional costs to comply with COVID safety protocols. And we assumed a 25% loss in revenue in excess of $1.5 million. We too were forced to suspend normal operations. This pandemic demonstrated across the country how nonprofits can be a part of the precarious circumstance of trying to be whole but not having the finances to feel safe. Over the past year, the Y has fulfilled a 65% increase in financial assistance requests for YMCA membership, childcare, and programming. Each year, we raise funds from our annual campaign to provide the financial support to fulfill our mission of giving everyone the opportunity to come to the Y, regardless of their ability to pay. The Y's annual campaign significantly impacts thousands of lives each year. In 2021, we provided more than $360,000 in financial assistance. Surges in COVID positivity rates challenged fundraising efforts as the Y was forced to reschedule signature fundraising events. But we tenaciously continued to fundraise and are thankful for the support the community that we live in, along with COVID relief grant support, provided us. We received COVID relief support in the form of PPP loans that were forgiven and a grant support from the Porter County Community Foundation, Eli Lilly, and Early Learning Indiana. We continue to cultivate strong donor relationships and are committed to raising the funds needed to ensure that the Y remains a financially sustainable organization and is available for all. Even in times of adversity, the YMCA continues to be a center of the community in Valparaiso. Next slide, please. Funding from this grant will be utilized to facilitate the construction of a 2,200 square foot single-story addition to the southeast face of the Valparaiso Family YMCA building at 1201 Cumberland Crossing Drive. The slide illustrates placement of the addition in context with our existing building. And within your handout, you will find an outline budget. We feel confident that we can have funds obligated or spent by the July 2024 deadline. The addition will function as a community room, space, support uninterrupted programming, and help the Y to serve a growing population. Next slide, please. Here's an illustration of how the space may appear. It is designed with with retractable walls and movable spaces to allow the room to morph and flex to serve a variety of needs. The Y's child care and school-age programs are currently at full capacity with an ongoing wait list of families. This additional footprint will allow the Y to serve more children in before and after school care and summer camp programming. And if future social distancing is required, the space will allow the Y to pivot without disruption to the services that families depend on. Further learning opportunities can also be available with dedicated spaces for STEM activities and other enrichment programs. The Y knows that children need academic enrichment, social emotional support, and physical activity. All programs will be available to the community, along with financial assistance, to make a real difference in the lives of children and families as they strive to recover from the pandemic. During evening and weekend hours, this addition can transform into teen space to accommodate the additional youth at the Y and offer healthy and monitored space for teens to hang out. Programs such as Youth in Government and Teens Together can be offered to give teens leadership opportunities. Earlier in the day, this addition can provide a space to accommodate the Y's senior membership. Current educational and social activities have capacity limits due to lack of space. This addition allows the Y to offer seniors enhanced social and educational programs that can be available to more seniors and in an environment where they have the personal space to feel comfortable and safe. Additionally, chronic disease and other programming such as Live Strong at the YMCA can be safely scheduled. One constant through the upheavals of 2020 was the steady stream of media reports about residents fleeing dense urban areas. We can all recognize the changing and growing Valparaiso community, illustrated by new businesses and property developments. This additional space gives room for the Y to flex and grow to meet the growing needs of our community. Funds will ultimately support the Valparaiso Family YMCA's continuing efforts to effectively strengthen the Valparaiso community within the Y impact areas of youth development, healthy living, and social responsibility. It is thrilling to see members come through the front door, seeking the sense of community and friendship that our Y so capably provides. This past year, we celebrated our 75th anniversary serving the Valparaiso community and are grateful for your consideration as we continue to serve our community for the next 75 years. Thank you.
That's it?
That's it.
You didn't even get to contribute, did you?
Well,
She will.
behind the
I kept
scenes.
waiting, I kept waiting for you to
I can
jump
talk for
in.
another 15 minutes.
Well, you know, I seen you all walking here with Clay. I figured, well, this is gonna be a good presentation. It's gonna be very quick.
Actually,
He has dinner reservations, so he does need to go.
these are, they're from our board of directors, so they're leadership from the Y, so we're very thankful they're here to support us tonight.
Yeah, they kept going like this behind your back. Just teasing.
They were throwing things at us, there's tomatoes.
Yeah, you have received some COVID funds or pandemic funds, however. Okay. Can you tell us what those are
Absolutely.
and how much?
We received, well, let me find that sheet. We received from the Porter County Community Foundation, $10,000 in unrestricted funds in 2020 and $10,000 in unrestricted in 2021. The Eli Lilly, we were part of a restricted grant that for school-age boot camp. And that was part of the Y Alliance grant, worked together for that. And we received funding in the amount of $14,278. From Early Learning Indiana, they distributed a child care stabilization grant. That's a restricted grant to support child care. And we received $231,227 in 2021 and $469,495 in just this year. And then they also have a grant that supports if you have to close your child care. It helps to cover wages for your staff because predominantly staff are hourly. And so if they're not there, if we're not open, they're not working. And so it helped to cover that pay during that time. And we did have to close for a couple of weeks, but we've been really lucky. We haven't had to close a lot for our child care. Yeah, I hate to even say that out loud. But we received $9,620 to support that. And then we did receive 2 PPP loans that were both forgiven. And so in May of 2020, we received $647,000, and in March of 2021, $663,943.
Question, if you were to receive some funds, but it wasn't the amount of $950,000, it was a portion of that. Say if it was half of that, how would you see that project through to completion by the dates made available to us if they have to be encumbered?
Most likely, we would have to consider reductions to the project and potentially go out for matched fundraising efforts then.
Okay. Any other questions?
So you have a commitment that you can get it all built by December 31st, 2026, that deadline?
We do. So Nick Larson's on our board from Larson Danielson, and so he did work with us to make sure that we could honestly look you in the eye and answer that question. And he gave us assurance that that could be done.
Any other questions? Thank you.
Thank
very
you
much.
so
Very
much.
good job. Okay, just, seems like everybody stayed over, which is nice. And Vicki, I believe was this our last interview? Or do we have another?
Today.
No, you have another one
Yeah,
on
another
May
batch?
16th,
Okay,
which is a week, well, it's not a week from today because today's Tuesday, but it's next Monday, May 16th. And that's the last 4 presentations, and then you're scheduled again on May 23rd
Right.
to score and rank.
Yeah. The May 23rd meeting will be, we have a meeting, if you couldn't hear over the air conditioner. We have one more meeting where we'll do 4 presentations. Then a week later, we will meet as a board to go over all the presentations and score accordingly. And then that information is sent off to the steering committee. The steering committee will then, through the information that we provide them, select those applications they feel best. And there's going to be a lot of variables, that's going to go into that. It's going to be what you're asking for, what you're doing with it, how much is available, everything. Because you're going to be thrown into a pool with everybody else that we have talked to up to this point. So I will tell you that well, let me finish, and then the steering committee, they will then pass on to the Board of Commissioners, and with their recommendations, the Board of Commissioners with the County Council will make the final decision. And it's good, it's tough, it's a very, if they weren't paying us so much to be up here, it just wouldn't be worth it. But it's going to be a tough decision, because I haven't heard a single presentation yet that wasn't legitimate. I mean, you can make a strong case for all you folks as to why you need help. And, maybe some way, somehow, we can touch all of you, some way. It may not be exactly what you're all asking for, but I think a little bit is better than nothing. Or, yeah. So, do you have any questions? Any questions from the public? Have anything to say? Nobody's got anything to say? Anybody bringing food with them? All right, we stand in recess. Thank you.